pick and prevail in your fantasy football league with the help of our starting lineup. At host to quarterback the show, we have Nick Giacobbe. Up next, a dual threat in Dynasty and Daily Fantasy, we have Cody Repass. And finally, working the waiver wire, we have Nick Cap. These are your playmakers that will provide you with sleepers, breakouts, and busts to help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 17 of the PrimeTime Fantasy Football Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, in the hopes that we help you prevail throughout the 2021 fantasy football season. I am your host, Nick Giacobbe, and joining me is Nick Capsalis. Nick, we're recording on Sunday night. It's Sunday, October 24th, so I know the week isn't over yet, but how did your week 7 go?
A lot still up in the air. My quarterback, I'm a Zach Wilson guy. Not too happy, but we move on.
I came home today to losing 3 of my matchups. It looks like in 2 of them, I'm going to face the top scorer in both of them. I got Jamar Chase. I got A.J. Brown. Not very good. Not very good week for me, but I did have a lot of guys on bye. So get through it. Looks like I'm going to go 1 for 4 in the week, but that's okay. If this is your first time listening, thank you so much. We do the show on every Tuesday, every Friday, and every single Sunday. For the Tuesday and Friday shows, it's audio and video. The audio version of the podcast can be found on Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, iTunes, anywhere where you could get your podcast. If you are on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. Thank you so much. If you want to watch and listen to the video version of the show, it's on our YouTube channel, PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. And for the Sunday shows, they are live. We're going to start doing them close to 11:30 when the injury news comes out. So we'll make an announcement on Friday's show, but they've been at 11 a.m. Eastern time. We do that on our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We'll answer all of your fantasy questions. That's the big thing, is you want to get your questions, help you with your lineups, bye weeks, injuries, all this stuff coming in is affecting your lineups. We want to help you guys. So tweet us, tag us, comment on the post on our social media. We want to help you with your fantasy questions. So that's going to be Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time every single week. You could find us on the YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. For social media, our Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok is going to be PrimeTimeFFPod. For Facebook and Twitter, for Facebook and YouTube, it's going to be PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Okay, Nick, let's start off with the injury and news segment, I should say. Patrick Mahomes, arguably probably the best quarterback in the league, got injured today. It was a nasty hit to the head. He did clear concussion protocol. Andy Reid said he decided not to bring him back into the game. What a messy game for the Chiefs, man. I called up before the season that there would be a Super Bowl hangover. And then I hear people left and right, oh, no, it's Mahomes. He's great, generational. He's this, he's that. The Chiefs, they're good, they're great. Well, the thing about losing a Super Bowl is it is really freaking tough to come back after winning the Super Bowl. The Chiefs have a problem. But as for the Mahomes injury, I think he's good to go. We'll have more information later this week, but apparently he cleared concussion protocol. So, Nick, are you worried about Mahomes at all from an injury perspective going into next week?
From an injury perspective, no. I mean, last year he had a concussion, and I don't know if people really remember, but the guy looked so woozy getting up. Like, he was walking sideways like he just had New Year's Eve at a bar down the Jersey Shore. But this injury looked tough. Looked like he wasn't going to be able to get up too quickly. He struggled to get off the field. But if he cleared the protocol, obviously they're not benching Mahomes. Now when they're down, now when they got a 3-4 record, if they were 6-1, maybe they choose to rest him. But he's going to go into week 8. Who did they?
They're facing the Giants on Monday Night Football, so he's even going to get another week to rest up that noggin of his.
Yeah, he'll get the extra day. He's going to play. I'm not worried about the injury at all.
All right, and your quarterback, Nick, Zach Wilson, he had a knee injury. He went out. What quarter did he go out in? The third quarter, maybe?
Second quarter.
Second quarter. What was the score of that game?
54-13.
Well, at the time, do you remember any idea what that score was? 20-something? Or how many points were they down? 15 or something like that?
It was 21-7, and on the play, there was a pass interference that put the Jets at the 1-yard line where they scored a touchdown 2 plays later.
So, I mean, Robert Saleh said in a quote that I think he said that they think it looks good, but they want to get it checked out. Who's their opponent next week, Nick?
Let me check real quick.
Let's assume he's going to play. Let's assume he's going to play next week because it doesn't
They
seem like it
play
looks serious.
Cincinnati.
They do play Cincinnati, yeah. Who look like a really good football team. They look like a good football team. You got to give Cincinnati the flowers. They look like a really good football team. Best record in the AFC. They just beat the Ravens, who looked like a really good football team, and they still think they are. But I think the Bengals, they're vying for a playoff spot this year. I think you got to take them seriously now. But anyway, let's assume that he's playing. Are you still playing a guy like Michael Carter or Corey Davis? They're probably the only fantasy relevant Jets players at the moment.
Maddie, I love Carter. Michael, really good guy. And most of his production came, or I think he split his production 9 points with Wilson, the back that replaced him. So I'm not worried about Michael Carter. Corey Davis, he caught the touchdown at the 1 yard line from the backup quarterback. If he did, he was having a 7-point week, and we would be talking about him in our bus segment. So, it's the same normal stuff that you're concerned with Corey. Michael Carter, I think rest of season will finish as a running back too, after seeing how they used him this past week.
The Jets just aren't a good football team. I hate to say it to you, Nick, but they're not a good football team, and they're not good for fantasy. I'm still Michael Carter, maybe because that running back position is so thin, but the rest of that team, Corey Davis, like they all got to be on the bench. And Corey Davis is probably the only receiver that should be on fantasy rosters. Yeah. Miles Sanders had an ankle injury ruled out against the Raiders. Honestly, I don't think this matters. Miles Sanders shouldn't be played in any leagues at this point. You can't trust him. You don't want a guy to get injured, but this really opens up the door for Kenneth Gainwell to go scoop him off your waiver wire. I think he had like 14, 15 points this week.
Yeah, Kenneth Gainwell's looked really good all year long, and it almost feels like Miles Sanders is preventing him from really taking that step up. I think Gainwell looks phenomenal. He looks like a really talented running back. Sanders, on the other hand, it's an injury 1 week and it's underperforming the next. It's mostly a product of having a rushing quarterback. But
I don't think it's a rushing quarterback. Sanders didn't play well last year. I think the only 2 weeks he had like over 20 fantasy points. He had 2 75-yard runs. It's fluky. I don't think Sanders was good last year. I avoided Sanders in the drafts. I said he was a bust because I don't know why people drafted him. I don't think the talent's there. I don't think the volume's there. I think the offensive line is garbage. I think the team is garbage. The Eagles are probably going to finish as a bottom 5, bottom 10 team, and they don't have many bright spots on that team. I can't name many. If I'm counting on my fingers, I can't name many on my fingers. So the Eagles are not a good football team, and Miles Sanders is somebody that we will need to talk about later on in the show. Josh Jacobs went out with a chest injury, I believe, at the second quarter or third quarter after scoring like 15 fantasy points. So he did give you a nice day before going out, at least. They pulled him pretty early, but it does seem like he will have some time to recover. They're on the bye. Doesn't sound like he's going to miss time after that. So how worried are you with Josh Jacobs?
I mean, this is the second or third injury Jacobs sustained this year.
That's just this year. Like he's had like multiple injuries throughout his like 4-year career. This is just
I mean, there's definitely injury concern there. On top of not having a lot of work in the passing game, I mean, it is what it is with Jacobs. I think all three of us, me, Nick, and Cody, were all very low on him to begin with. Not really too much more of an outlook that we could say on that.
And they'll be facing the Giants coming out of the bye, by the way. So we'll give you more of an update next week. I mean, there's not much more to say. It's not a serious injury. Clearly, we won't really have an update till they're practicing next week. So that's really all we could say on that at the moment. Final bit of news we have is David Coley, Texans coach, said Tyrod Taylor will practice this week. Unsure if he plays against the Rams. I would not recommend putting any quarterback coming off of injury against the Rams for the first day back. They didn't look – the defense wasn't terrific today. Jared Goff put up like 25 real life points against them. But again, like Tyrod's coming off an injury that he's had for the past 5-6 weeks. The Texans are a bottom 3 team in the league. If you're ranking the bottom 3 worst teams, it's probably the Texans, Jets, and Jags. Am I missing it? The Bears are pretty bad too. The Bears are right up there.
Lions, 4. Maybe.
The Lions are competitive. The Lions are competitive. No, the Lions are worse than. I mean, the Bears are worse than the Lions.
Bears have 4 wins or 3 wins.
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. The Bears are worse than the Lions.
No, they're not.
Yes, my eyes tell me the Bears are worse than the Lions.
Well,
the Lions have competed.
You got to get that prescription.
The Lions have competed. The Bears get blown out. The Bears are a terrible
You gotta
football
check
team.
that prescription. I'm looking at the record column, and
I don't care about
Nagy
the
at coach,
record.
they
Record
got
means
winning
nothing to
records.
me. I like the eye test. Record means nothing to me. The Lions play tough. The Bears don't.
I don't want to hear it. Chicago's got the better team.
They're both pretty bad, but
They're both horrendous.
Anyway, point being, the Texans are a terrible, terrible football team. I would not recommend throwing Tyrod Taylor out there against Aaron Donald. Save him for one more week.
In all honesty, if they did not win that first week, we would be literally comparing them to the Browns a couple years ago that went 1-15 and 0-16.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing saving them. It's like the Jaguars last year where they won the first game and we're like, oh, is anything going to happen? Nope. That was the only game they won.
And I don't think the Texans have even been competitive. I got to look at this up right now. I need to see what their scores are, because I don't even think they've been competitive.
They were competitive 1 or 2 weeks, I believe.
The Browns beat them by 10. Then they got smoked by the Panthers, smoked by the Bills. Patriots won by 3. That was competitive. Smoked by Indy and smoked by the Cardinals. So 4 out of 6 weeks, 4 out of 7 weeks, they've been absolutely smoked. Alrighty, that is our news segment. Thankfully, no season-ending injuries for this week. We're not going to go to our weekly wrap, but we're going to talk about the studs and duds from Week 7, and we're going to start with the quarterbacks. Quarterback 1 on the week, Matthew Stafford, 27.1 points against his former team. Quarterback 2, Joe Burrow, 26.6 points. Quarterback 3, Tua Tagovailoa at 26.5 points. Nick, which quarterback was your biggest stud of the week?
Give me Joe Burrow. Way to go. Tough matchup in Baltimore. Me and Nick, we'll talk about Chase a little later because we do have an apology for him. But I mean, the guy showed up. I mean, I have his stats right here. The last 4 weeks the entire season, 2 touchdown floor in every game, 2 or 3 touchdowns. Has interception the past 2 weeks, but has been pretty good not turning the ball over.
But I don't mind the picks if he's a gunslinger. If you're gonna, Peyton Manning threw a lot of picks. I'm not worried about Burrow throwing picks.
Week 4 puts up 348 yards, 2 touchdowns. Week 5, 281, 2 touchdowns. Last week, 261, 3 touchdowns. This week, 416 and 3 touchdowns. Great job, Joe Burrow. That's all you got to say. Guy's immensely talented. He deserved to be the number 1 pick last year. He's shown up and shown out this year. He really marked himself as a sophomore breakout. I mean, he's just a phenomenal player. And it was a tough Ravens matchup. This is the first time Lamar lost to the Bengals his entire career. This is the first time, the Bengals have beaten Lamar. It's a big matchup. It's probably the biggest game of Joe Burrow's career, as Scott Hansen dubbed it. It's a good showing. End of story. Joe Burrow's a real quarterback. He's not is he going to be a bust that everybody thought last year? Nope. As long as he stays healthy, he's an elite quarterback in this league.
Joe Burrow can be started every single week. That I'm playing it out there. I've been praising him for a couple weeks now on the show, but he's startable every single week, and you should have confidence in that. He's balled out against the Ravens. He's balled out against the Packers, and I know the Packers don't have a good defense, but that's a good football team. He balled out. If his kicker could hit some kicks, they would have won that one. He balled out against Pittsburgh, and they have a good defense. Joe Burrow can be started every single week now, and start him with confidence on top of that. For me, it's the quarterback 3 on the week, Tua Tagovailoa. I said on our live show on Sunday, which is really this morning from when we're recording, I said start Tua. I said if you're in a 12-man league, start Tua because it's a make it or break it game for him. And I think it was a make it or break it game for Burrow too, to a point, meaning that for that Bengals team, if they were going to be taken seriously as a competitor, they had to keep the Ravens game close. I said the same thing with the Packer game. You keep it close. That's all you could really, that's what you're hoping for. And they won both, and they won dominantly today. So that's on another level. But for Tua, it was make it or break it. The Falcons have the worst fantasy defense in the league. This is a team that every single quarterback should be dropping 25 plus fantasy points on. And if you're not, you're probably not a good quarterback. Tua had 26.5 fantasy points. Quarterback 3 on the week. He balled out. I don't know how much the Dolphins are going to keep pursuing Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is obviously an upgrade over Tua. I'm not saying that Tua is now an elite quarterback. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that this is a game where he had to prove that he could play quarterback in this league. And I know the Falcons don't have a good defense, but still, he's getting a rhythm. And I think the next 8 weeks are going to be really crucial for Tua unless they do trade for Deshaun Watson. Because if he could show flashes, they're going to keep him for another year. If not, then this offseason is going to be an interesting one for the Miami Dolphins.
Just a quick note on Tua. So he struggled in the first half, and they played mostly garbage time points. But garbage time doesn't matter in fantasy. You get those garbage time points. That's what made Dak Prescott the number one quarterback last year before he got hurt. Another quick note on Deshaun Watson and the trade rumors. This broke earlier this morning that the Texans are now publicly saying whoever beats out the Dolphins by the trade deadline, that's who's getting the deal. So they've already insinuated the Dolphins have made a substantial offer for Deshaun, and it's very possible we see a trade within the next 2 weeks.
Yep. And the quarterback duds of the week, Pat Mahomes, quarterback 19 at 7.7 points. It's not due to the injury. He just didn't look good today against the Titans. Yep. And quarterback 24, Sam Darnold, 2.4, should not be on any fantasy roster. I'm going to take this one, Nick. First, Nick, I've been a Darnold guy the whole season, and I'm off the train now. The Darnold train has left the station. Sam Darnold still stinks. He still reeks of Jets green. He's still terrible. Sam Darnold should not be on fantasy rosters at this point. Get him out of your lineups, out of your team. Go pick up somebody else because there's somebody out there better than Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold, you former Jet. This guy ruined Adam Gase's coaching career. That's all I got to say on this man.
Adam Gase ruined his career. I think it's the other way around. And Pat Mahomes, I didn't catch most of this game, Nick, but he didn't look good. Apparently, he did not.
No, I mean, I was watching it. They went they just kept getting shut out drive after drive, and this is like right up there with Seattle.
It's not very great.
As a defense.
Yeah,
this is not the strongest defense in the world. The Chiefs have a real problem. They could not move the ball against one of the worst defenses in football. That's a problem. This is the first game in Mahomes' career where he has not had a touchdown. Not just him, his entire team as a whole. That is a problem for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you own any player on that team, you're not hitting the panic button, but you should be very concerned if you're a Kelsey owner, if you're a Tyreek owner, if you're a Daryl Williams owner, and we're banking on him. We're covering for Clyde. When Clyde comes back, your concern level has to be high. And Mahomes is a concern now. Mahomes has not played the best football. In my opinion, he's still the most talented quarterback in the league, but he's not looking like it. He's turning the ball over a lot easier. Those
Josh Allen's winning the MVP. Josh Allen's winning the MVP. Like, it's going to happen.
Nope, Kyler, K1.
We'll see. It's going to be a tough race. Let's go to running backs now. DeAndre Swift, running back 1, 28 points. Damian Harris, running back 2, 25 points. Dearness Johnson, 24 points, running back 3. Running back 5, Khalil Herbert, 18 points. Running back 6, Myles Gaskin, 17 points, and running back 11, Michael Carter, 16 points. Nick, who is your biggest running back stud of the week?
There's two guys I'm going to talk about, both from the same matchup. It's Damian Harris and it's Michael Carter. Michael Carter looked phenomenal. They came off the bye. They knew how they wanted to use Carter in this offense, even though it didn't translate to a win or even competing at all against Bill Belichick. You knew it wasn't going to happen going into the week. You saw what happened the first time they faced. It was not going to be a good game. It was not going to look good for the Jets offense. But Michael Carter was the one shining spot. They gave him the ball a lot, even a game where they were down a lot, and they passed him the ball a ton for the running back position for a rookie running back. I think it's the most targets or the second most targets any rookie running back has received this year. So that's a big stat for Michael Carter. You got to keep an eye out for him. He's going to have a good year. Good rest of the season. Damian Harris, all three of those running backs showed out, but Damian Harris is the one there. They got the ball in a position to score, and every time Harris was there on the goal line, that's who they like. That's who they're going to use. As much as all three were good, I'm not looking at the other two. Harris has the green light, in my opinion, and he is a phenomenal running back.
I'm going to talk about Khalil Herbert. I didn't start him this week because Damien Williams is coming back, but Herbert had 18 carries to Damien Williams 3. He had 100 yards. I know he had a long of 29, but he also had 5 receptions for 33 yards. He had 5 targets, caught all 5 of them. I think until David Montgomery comes back, this is the Bears running back 1. This is a guy that you could comfortably start as a running back 2 or in a flex spot if you need somebody, depending on your bye weeks, depending on injuries. This is a guy that you could comfortably start now. Also, Dearness Johnson, what a showing for him. Starting running back for the Browns last week, he had 146 yards on 20 carries. He had a touchdown, 26 fantasy points. I mean, can't really ask for much more than that. He's going to be a top waiver wire target this week if he's not on rosters. Kareem Hunt is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. That just leaves Nick Chubb, and Chubb doesn't get a full workload. He's also a little banged up. So Dearness Johnson is going to have a role in this offense going forward. And the duds of the week for the running backs, running back 28, Daryl Henderson. I missed on that one. Hands up for that. Aaron Jones, 8.9 points, running back 29. Running back 30, Daryl Williams, another miss by me, 8 points. And running back 31, Antonio Gibson, 7.6. Nick, who is your biggest running back dud of the week?
We talked about Antonio Gibson enough, so I'm not going to harp too much on him.
Well, I think we should. I think we should mention Gibson real quick. If you're not going to, I'm just going to say that I'm worried now. I'm worried about him. I'm worried about the shin injury that we talked about on the Sunday morning show that he's had. What was the injury again? Not a broken.
He has a
shin.
fractured shin.
A fractured shin.
Playing with
a fractured shin. Yeah. So I'm worried now. These are back-to-back weeks where Gibson has less than 10 fantasy points. This is one guy that you drafted in round 1. I'm worried, and I'm probably benching him depending on your running back situation. I would need to see who's you're playing over him, but like we just talked about, if Khalil Herbert's on your bench, I think I'm benching Antonio Gibson until I know exactly what's going to happen with this injury, because I wouldn't be shocked if he goes on IR. I don't know when their bye is, but I'm going to look it up right now while you're talking. So who's your biggest dud of the week for the running backs?
I'm going to talk about Aaron Jones. I mean, what the hell happened to him this week? AJ Dillon didn't play too well either, but Green Bay's playing up against Washington. Washington has not been a good defense, and they got off to an early lead and could have just ran this clock out, and that's just not the route that Green Bay chose to take. This was a very favorable matchup for Jones. He should have delivered. Should have been a big game, where one of those games where the other Aaron shows up, not Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers played well this week, finished as a top 7 quarterback, I believe. And Aaron Jones just did not execute. I'm not too concerned with him. But, some of these more favorable game scripts, it's concerning to know that they're going to stick to the pass game rather than just running the clock out.
The football team are on bye week 9, by the way. So we'd have to get through this week and then have a bye. Darrell Henderson, the Rams were in this game a lot, and they only had 9.4 fantasy points. I'm not sure why exactly, but what a weird game. First off, they didn't blow out the Lions. The Lions had a lead at one point. So he wasn't going to get
the Lions. Oh my God, I'm a fan of the Lions after what I saw this week.
Henderson had 15 carries, 45 yards. I mean, I guess just not a good game, but I don't know. Weird game for him. And then Daryl Williams, obviously the Chiefs just were all out of sync. Disappointing for both of them because I thought they both had good matchups, and I like them this week, but they're big busts on the week. They're running back twos that did not produce for your fantasy team. On to the wide receivers. Wide receiver 1, Cooper Kupp. It's just every single week, like, I think I got to take him out of this segment because it's expected at this point. 37 fantasy points. I versed Cooper Kupp and the number 2, Jamar Chase, 34 fantasy points in my dynasty league. My buddy Tom dropped 225 on me. A big old egg on my head. He took a steamy one right on my face. It was disgusting. Like 220. Like, Tom has a phenomenal team. Tom's going to win the points this year for sure. Like, he's a phenomenal team. And Jamar Chase, wide receiver 2. Mike Evans, wide receiver 3, 31 points. AJ Brown, 27.3. Predicted that one. And Chris Godwin, 25.1. So, Nick, I know you got an apology for Chase, but you were off on Godwin too. Godwin had a good week.
Yeah, I owe a couple of these guys apologies. I was definitely off on Godwin. Godwin executed. I was off on Chase all year long. I don't know how to explain Jamar Chase. He's just phenomenal for a receiver, not even a rookie receiver. He's phenomenal for a wide receiver. He looks better than Justin Jefferson 7 weeks into the year. I'll say this. Jamar Chase has been a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL this year, and there's no way around it. It's Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase. Hopkins ain't in there this year. Tyreek ain't in there this year. Devontae's in there.
Devontae's probably in there. And then for the other two, I mean, Antonio Brown's up there when he's healthy, but it's tough. Like, I'm not going to start ranking guys now, but point being, Jamar Chase has arrived. If you drafted Chase in Dynasty, you are set up, my friend. You are set up for a long time. I drafted George Kittle over him, and I'm not really happy about it, but whatever. But yeah, I need to apologize to Chase too. I had him as a bust last week. Not that I didn't think he'd produce, but I didn't think he was going to score the type of points that he normally does. And I was right on that. He didn't score the points that he normally does. He scored more than that. So tip my cap to Jamar Chase and those Bengals, man. Like, T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, like, that team's fun to watch. Those two guys aren't really great fantasy wide receivers at this point. But as for Jamar Chase, man, I can't say much. I can't say anything better about him. And as for AJ Brown, you don't have to worry about that hammy anymore. You don't have to worry about Tannehill. He's going to start getting going. The chains are off on AJ Brown. So if you face AJ Brown in weeks like 1 to 4, you got lucky. Now facing him, it's going to be a rough one. Let's go to the wide receiver busts or duds. Brandon Cook 7.1, Allen Robinson, he has a permanent residence on this one at 3.6, OBJ at 4.3, and Julio Jones at 5.8. Who do you want to talk about, Nick?
Let's go Brandon Cooks. That dude just needs Tyrod Taylor back. End of story. They looked good against the Patriots. That was a nice one-off. And this Texans team is horrendous. There was a beautiful, beautiful play. Nice screen pass to David Johnson where he slips right after he catches it, and they get tackled immediately. This team looks so bad. They're a horrendous roster, and Brandon Cooks mostly benefits from game script and his talent. And the quarterback talent looks like Baker Mayfield, in my opinion. And I think Baker is horrendous. I think if you put Baker on that team, it would look the same exact way. And it's exactly why I am not a fan of Brandon Cooks during this stunt. If you could go trade for him after this game, though, knowing that Taylor should be coming back within the next 2 weeks, I'd take your shot, especially if they do look to move Deshaun Watson and maybe get a Tua or a Darnold in return. You got some upside there with Cooks, a little bit more than you did beforehand.
I got to talk about Allen Robinson. I feel like we're talking about him like every week at this point. He's the wide receiver 54 on the year. He's only cracked 10 fantasy points once. He's had under 5 fantasy points twice. If you showed me Allen Robinson's stats, I would tell you this receiver is droppable. And that's a problem. You can't play him anymore. And he's like a week or two away from showing up on our stash and trash segment because the name value isn't there anymore. The Bears team is horrendous. I'll stick to the statement. The Lions are a better football team than the Bears. The Lions have a brighter future than the Bears. I'm going to stick to this one. The Bears are horrendous. The offensive line is terrible. The receivers are decent, but the line is terrible. The defense is a shell of its former self. Like, I haven't heard Khalil Mack's name in like weeks. Like, what is he doing anymore? What are the Bears? Where did Eddie Jackson disappear to? Is he in Cabo already? Like, is he already down there? Where did the Bears defense go? The offensive line is terrible. Like, German Ifedi's on the line, so I'm not really shocked that they're terrible. I watched that guy blow blocks for Russell Wilson for like 4 years. They're terrible. The Bears are terrible. Like, you can't even trust any Bear. Maybe like Khalil Herbert, but they're terrible. So Allen Robinson, like if you're an Allen Robinson owner, you wasted a draft pick. You wasted a draft pick, and I am glad that somebody drafted him before me in all my leagues, and I didn't have the opportunity to draft him. Alrighty, on to the tight end. Cj Ozoma, his second appearance on this segment, 24.1 points. Tight end 1. Tight end 2, Kyle Pitts with 23 points. Tight end 3, Mike Gesicki, 21 points. Tight end 4, Foster Moreau on the Raiders backup to Darren Waller, 18 points. Nick, who is your biggest tight end stud of the week?
I'm going Kyle Pitts, man. And last week on the bye, the 3 weeks prior, 9 targets, 10 targets, 8 targets. Tight ends in their 3-4 year don't see that. George Kittle does not see that. Darren Waller outside of week 1 has not seen that. Travis Kelce sees it. That's the class that Kyle Pitts is entering now. He's broken the record for most receiving yards by a tight end through 5 games. He's broken it through 6 games, and he's extending that. 163 yards this week, delivered 23.3 fantasy points without finding the end zone. What more can you ask for from a tight? He's a wide receiver listed at tight end in fantasy. It's like having Taysom Hill play your tight end position when he was quarterback or tight end. Like, that's the level of player that you're getting there. And if you could get Kyle Pitts in any league right now or in any dynasty format, it's phenomenal because it's like you're playing an additional wide receiver at your tight end position.
You're definitely not getting him in Dynasty. CJ Ozoma is such an interesting one because he doesn't really get the targets, but Joe Burrow loves him in the red zone. He has 5 touchdowns. I mean, he's almost like this year's Robert Tonyan, even more than Dawson Knox. Mike Gesicki, like after that week 1 goose egg, I mean, he's been a set at tight end. I think he's had over 20 fantasy points, like 3 weeks out of 7. He's had over 10 fantasy points a couple other weeks. Especially now with Tua, like you could trust Gesicki. That might be his favorite target, him and Waddle. So those are 2 guys that you could trust now. And the tight end bust of the week, we have Noah Fant, tight end 16, 8.9, and Mark Andrews 7.8. Noah Fant, that's such a weird one because the Browns defense hasn't been good. I know the weather was bad in that one low scoring game. I'm going to chalk both of these tight ends up to just weird game scripts, weird games, not a talent issue, not a team issue, just bad luck, bad weeks, and that's just kind of what happens sometimes in fantasy.
Yep, I'm right there with you, Nick. Especially Mark Andrews. He had 2 great weeks the 2 prior weeks. It's the normal fantasy roller coaster where you get your 2 boom weeks, you get your bust week, or vice versa. He's just riding the roller coaster. I'm not worried about either or.
All right, we're that's studs and duds. We're now going to go to the week 8 waiver wire. Tell you guys that you should be picking up this week. We have Rashad Bateman. We have Kenneth Gainwell, Kendrick Bourne, Dearness Johnson, Russell Gage, and you have Deshaun Watson in there, Nick. So let's talk about these guys. Who are your top 2 or 3 waiver targets this week?
Mine's Deshaun Watson, number 1. Deshaun Watson's getting traded by this trade deadline, not a doubt.
What day is the trade deadline? Is it Thursday?
It is I think it's the first week of November. So I think you got another week or 10 days about for him to get dealt. I'm sold that he's getting dealt. He will get told that he's going to face a suspension, but because he was not convicted of anything, just like Tom Brady, he's going to appeal it week by week by week by week, and he's going to get away with playing games. When Deshaun Watson played football the 3 prior seasons, he finished as a top 5 fantasy quarterback every single time. Deshaun Watson's going to go to what it looks like one of 3 teams: Denver, Carolina, Miami. All 3 of those teams have talented wide receiving cores. Jerry Jeudy back next week. Christian McCaffrey bound to come back at some point this season. Miami, Devontae Parker, reunion with Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. He's going to one of these loaded offenses, and he is going to be the elite quarterback you saw. He has been practicing. It's not like he has not seen a football field since last year at the week 17. The guy has seen the football field. We know the talent's there and is going to go to one of these offenses. Deshaun Watson, if he gets picked up, if he gets traded, is going to play and will be a top 5 fantasy quarterback rest of season. Behind him, Kenneth Gainwell. If you don't need the quarterback, you got one of those top dogs. Go get him because Miles Sanders has been holding him back, and the running back position is suffering a ton of injuries at this point. Kenneth Gainwell should be slotted in low-end RB2 rest of the year with a lot higher of a ceiling with no Miles Sanders there.
For me, my top 2 is going to be Dearness Johnson and Kenneth Gainwell. You spoke about Gainwell, but for Dearness Johnson, again, I talked about it. I think he's going to have a role in this offense. I think he'll split with Nick Chubb, 60-40, 70-30 split, but he's talented, so I think he's going to have a role in this offense for the next 6 weeks until Kareem Hunt is back. Rashad Bateman, too, is my number 3. He's probably owned in most leagues, but I saw on ESPN he's only owned in 17% of leagues. I think that's a crime. There's guys that we're about to talk about in stash and trash that should not be on rosters. And I think Rashad Bateman should be on just about every roster. He's becoming the wide receiver 2 there, and Lamar Jackson has been throwing the ball efficiently throughout the entire season. Not today, but throughout most of the season. He's a rookie too. So if he's on their dynasty roster, look what I've with Kadarius Toney. This guy you should pick up before he breaks out. And it's probably too late in most leagues, but I would put Rashad Bateman in there. Alrighty, that was your waiver wire. We're now going to end the show with stash or trash. We're going to talk about players that we think you might be able to hold for the rest of the season, or players that you might want to dump off because you're done having them on your roster. Let's start with Miles Sanders, Nick. Is he a stash or a trash for you?
I'm trashing him. I'm sorry. He's had 1 week over 10 points since the week 1 decent performance, to say the least. Miles Sanders is not startable for the rest of the year.
I'm with you too. He hasn't shown me any reason why I can start him. There's other running backs that are probably on your waiver wire, unless you really need a running back for a bye week. Like he's droppable, so I would trash him. What about Robbie Anderson?
You know how high I am on him, and I it's so hard to say drop him because in the last 4 weeks he's seen 11 targets, 7, 11, 9. And when you see that from a player, you do not drop them. That's why Allen Robinson was productive for the last 4 or 5 years prior to this. But, Sam Darnold is a horrendous quarterback, and Robbie is not the talent that Allen Robinson is. So I'm ready to say it's time to drop him because I will not trust playing him rest of the year.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I'm dropping Robbie Anderson. I haven't been a Robbie Anderson guy this entire season. Maybe if you got Deshaun Watson, maybe consider it, but no, he's droppable. What about Baker Mayfield, Nick's favorite quarterback on his favorite franchise in the entirety of the sports world?
Nope. Baker Mayfield, I don't care. When that team is so dinged up, and every time that they're dinged up, Baker Mayfield cannot manage to deliver. I'm sorry. I don't care. I don't care. The player sucks. Baker Mayfield sucks as a quarterback. They should, in my opinion, if I were the Browns organization right now, I'd be on the phone. I would be on the phone with the Houston Texans offering Baker Mayfield for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't go through, the second this season ends, I'm calling up Green Bay to go get Aaron Rodgers because he is going to want out after this year. Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson takes that team to a Super Bowl within the next 2 years.
If they traded Watson right now, I think the Browns will make the Super Bowl this year. If he starts with the Browns next week, he turns that team around.
Not a doubt in my mind.
There's some tough contenders. Like, it's tough because the Bills are really, really good. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs. The Titans are in there. But you put them on that Browns team, I feel like the culture changes. I feel like the entire offense changes. That would be a game changer for the Browns. But I would also trash Baker. I think there's better quarterbacks out there on your waiver wire. Matt Ryan's been scoring 20-plus points. Derek Carr, like this guy's out there. Mike Davis, stash or trash?
He's got to go. Cordell Patterson's seeing a lower percentage of the field, and he's seeing way more production. Clearly, they don't want to use Mike Davis in a way that they want to use Cordell Patterson, and it's not going to change. They just came off the bye, and they just showed it this week. Mike Davis should not be rostered anymore.
Yep, I'm trashing him as well. What about A.J. Dillon? I said trash him a week or two ago. It's still my opinion. He shouldn't be on a roster unless you own Aaron Jones. Then he's your handcuff.
I'm exactly with you.
Sammy Watkins, I'm trashing him. Rashad Bateman's the wide receiver 2. They still have Mark Andrews there, and Lamar Jackson likes running it in the red zone. I'm trashing Sammy Watkins.
Watkins got to go.
T.Y. Hilton.
I mean, we've been saying it for weeks that he's got to be gone, and for some reason, he's still rostered in a majority of leagues. That is a problem. Get T.Y. Get him off your team for any of the players we said in our waiver wire segment.
Yep, he hasn't shown me enough to warrant a roster spot. What about any Ravens running back? I've said it for weeks. Like, I can't trust playing any of them, so trash them all. Unless you badly needed a running back and you're like, let's just see what happens with Latavius Murray. But I don't want any of them on my roster because I'm not comfortable starting any of them.
You should be only streaming whichever one is the healthy one at this point. And that's if you need it because your running backs are on bye or because of the injuries. And the order goes Latavius, then Devontae Freeman, then the rest, and it doesn't matter after that.
Yep. What about Rondale Moore?
If you're in a keeper league, hold on to him because I think that Christian Kirk's going to get out of there next year. And I think that Rondale will really, succeed in this offense. But for right now, if you're using him rest of the year, it's too crowded, even with Zach Ertz now coming in, for him to see consistent production where you're going to trust him on a week. And if you cannot trust him to start him in your lineup, it is not worth holding him.
Yep, I'm with you on that one. Keep him in keeper leagues, in redraft leagues, or whatever you want to call them. I'm dropping him for somebody like Rashad Bateman, Dearness Johnson, anybody in our waivers segment. Last two, Allen Robinson.
I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna put the two of them together. So
okay, Allen Robinson and Odell Beckham Jr., both of them.
Allen Robinson and OBJ, I am holding them to the actual NFL trade deadline. If neither of them get moved, I'm dropping them from my team.
What if either of them go out and score 20 next week?
I don't care. Because
you're still dropping them. You're still dropping them.
I will still drop them because I will not be able to trust playing them any other week. I would. Okay. I mean, if they drop 20 and someone makes me an offer for them, go for it. I'll take whatever I can get that I would rather trust playing. But I'm ready to drop Odell and Allen Robinson if they do not get moved from their quarterback and team situation.
Odell, I give a little more of a pass on because he's had 2 good weeks, but now he didn't have Baker last week, so I'm giving him a tiny bit of a pass. Allen Robinson's a mess right now. Still going to stash them, but it's tough, man. They're really close to being dropped, both of them, especially Allen Robinson.
I think they're both riding off name alone, same as Julio.
I think so too, yeah. Julio's another one. Like, he could appear on the segment next week too. So all 3 of those receivers probably aren't startable in most leagues, so they're riding off on the name. Alrighty, that was Stash or Trash. Hopefully we helped with your waiver wire, which players you should drop and which players you should keep. That was our show for this week. Again, if you're a first-time watcher and or listener, thank you so much. You'll hear from us on Friday. The audio versions are on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iTunes, I said iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else where you get your audio podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. If you want to watch the show on Friday, or any Friday or Tuesday, it's going to be on our YouTube, which is Primetime Fantasy Podcast. The live shows are every Sunday, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. If you want to support us on social media, and please do, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, PrimeTimeFFPod, Facebook, Primetime Fantasy Podcast, YouTube, Primetime Fantasy Podcast. Likes, retweets, subscriptions, all that stuff really does help, guys. It takes you all of 5 minutes, so please support us any way you can. We greatly do appreciate it. Nick, anything you would like to say before we end our first episode for Week 8?
I'm good, man. I just want my team to recover.
I hope by the time this episode comes out, the Seahawks would have beaten Jameis Winston, but I don't know, man. They're not very good, so we'll see what happens on Monday Night Football. Thank you guys for listening to this show, as you do every show. We appreciate you all. We love you all. We'll talk to you on Friday.